The headline of the article is "Town Planning Tasks and Principles of Restoration of Urbanized Territories of the Lugansk Region, Destroyed as a Result of Hostilities." The article is written by Kostiantyn Sokolenko, Oleg Sokolenko, Oleksandr Holodnov, and Oleg Chernih. The scale and nature of changes in the urban planning parameters of the Lugansk region under the influence of hostilities and the possibilities of the restoration of urbanized territories are studied. The purpose of the study is to determine the models and principles for the restoration of urban areas affected by hostilities. The paper considers the quantitative and qualitative nature of the impact of destruction and the socio-demographic and economic consequences caused by them on the change in the urban planning parameters of the Lugansk region. On February 24, 2022, an open war began. In combat operations, all types of weapons and combat arms are used. Appropriate are the scale and consequences of the destruction. Unfortunately, there is every reason to assert that the scale and nature of the destruction of individual urbanized territories is so significant that questions arise as to what and how will have to be restored. The destruction of an individual house is not a particular problem in terms of its restoration. The destruction of a significant part of the housing stock, engineering system for the city, road and transport infrastructure raises the question: in what sequence, in what volumes it is necessary to restore the city? There arise the tasks of assessing and determining the scope of work, the order of renewal, the forecasted terms of restoration, sources of financing, the availability of labor resources and the urban development base. And all this in a region that was in decline even before the hostilities. It becomes obvious that in the event of the end of the war, complex methodological tasks will arise, covering the priority of restoration, the list of objects, subject to and not subject to restoration, approximate time for the implementation of programs and plans for restoration, the definition of the town planning base for the development of territories, and many other issues. The task of updating the general layouts of settlements will become relevant. Regional development programs will have to be radically revised. The war is not over yet. The scale of losses and destruction cannot be correctly calculated. Secondly, there is hardly a methodology that allows modeling the volume of losses in a single indicator. Officials give a variety of information which allows us to draw conclusions. The scale of destruction is enormous. It is appropriate to point out that a city is not an arithmetical aggregate of residential buildings. The defining characteristic of a city is the list of functions and services it provides. Functions of the city are the main types of activities performed by its residents. The main groups of functions are distinguished: city forming, which determines the economic base of the city. These production functions are industrial productions, construction, transport, higher education institutions, tourism, etc. City services are functions of the city performed exclusively in relation to its population. Figures show a panorama and a bird's-eye view of the Popasna district. Figures show only a small part of the entirely destroyed city of Popasna. The city's economy was mainly focused on railway transport and the coal industry. Next figure shows what the village of Novotoshkivka turned into. The first question that arises is what functions and services inherent in the city are possible. How to estimate the scale of destruction? How should the program for reconstruction of the settlement look like? The classical theory of town planning development is based on the evolutionary, gradual nature of transformations, with the aim of improving the town planning situation. In our case, unfortunately, we have changes that are sudden, external in nature, partially catastrophic, partially leading to changes in the urban or regional situation radically. A recursion is fixed when the usage form changes as a result of the war. The impact of the war determines the changes in the function of the use of the territory. Change of function, if it is irreversible, determines the change in form during the period of post-war reconstruction. For example, Lysychansk is known to be the birthplace of coal mining Donbas. Will be economically feasible to keep the coal mines of Lysychansk. A separate scientific task is to assess the impact of migration processes on the directions of the functional development of the territory. The percentage of the active part of the population has decreased. This trend has been fixed in the Donbas for a long time. The war gave the character of a catastrophe. The primary classification of objects holding destruction as a result of hostilities according to topological features makes it possible to group objects according to the characteristics of the size of the territories and according to the principle of the priority of the territory. Comprehensive reconstruction of destroyed cities is based on the principles of protection and safety, accessibility, autonomy, adaptability, attractiveness, environmental friendliness, and restoration of the environment. The restoration process will be divided into three directions: object reconstruction, functional reconstruction, and urban reconstruction. It will be difficult to determine the predominant direction at the initial stage. Object reconstruction of buildings aims to restore their functional properties and primary housing qualities. Functional reconstruction of buildings and structures within a block aims to find the optimal modern functional use, taking into account the real condition of the block. Urban reconstruction includes the reconstruction of the spatial territorial structure as the basis for preserving and developing the main functions of the city. Three forms of reconstruction activity are distinguished: the restorative reconstruction model, the supportive or accompanying reconstruction model, the proactive or anticipatory reconstruction model. The proactive reconstruction model has a high level of stimulation for future activity. It's designed for implementation over a period of 5-7 years and results in a reconstruction concept or target program. The supportive reconstruction model has a medium level of stimulation for future activity. It's designed for implementation within 5 years and provides for the development of a reconstruction project. The restorative reconstruction model has a low level of stimulation activity, operates within a time frame from half to 1 year, and involves the development and implementation of a reconstruction project for an object. At the initial stage, situational response will be implemented for emergency restoration of urban objects and functions. This will be followed by a period of implementation of programs and projects for supportive and proactive reconstruction. Within 2-3 years, an adequate target program for the constructive development of urbanized territories should be developed. Object-oriented response and current development should be subordinate to the programmatic goals of the proactive reconstruction model. Situational response, which leads to systematic error, promotes the accumulation of problems and contradictions, ultimately resulting in the degradation of territories and regional crisis state, is a negative alternative. From the intermediate conclusions, it is advisable to single out: the cities of the Lugansk region have different planning structures and their own unique compositional construction. The consequences of destruction lead to the fact that the basic urban planning principles require adjustment. Changing the function and form of territories is the task of restoration. The military and spatial nature of the use of the territories will be a priority, so the planning frame of the territory should undergo changes. Cross-border cooperation is being replaced by a border and protective exclusion zone. The restoration of the territories is the case when it is necessary to revise and update general layouts. Regional development schemes aimed at the advanced development of programs and projects that primarily ensure the structural growth of territories. The model of anticipatory reconstructive activity is a priority. Urbanized areas with normal density are more successful and competitive. It is more expedient to invest in education and the development of workplaces and not in the general improvement of the territory. It should be taken into account that as a result of population migration, the region will experience a labor shortage. Provide for a part of the territory that should be taken out of use for environmental purposes, for landscape reproduction, to preserve ecologically surviving areas as much as possible. Thank you so much for your interest and attention.